just walk it out to those folks when you're ready.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for another candidate forum. We have several of our alders here. We have one seat that is contested today, and we'll introduce you to those two interested parties. And then we have our other seats that are up for renewal and are uncontested, but we thought it was important that you hear from them. Just to get started, I wanted to thank everyone for coming. And obviously, we are doing these Fitchburg Focus breakfasts now every other month. So we will have this forum in this location every other month, and you should find that on our calendar and our newsletters. We want to thank our corporate sponsors for sponsoring this, MG&E, Park Bank, Cardinal Heating and Cooling, and Group Health Cooperative. Thank you. Oh yeah, and the donut sponsors, Quick Trip, yay, and Wyndham Garden is our host today. And of course, the City of Fitchburg and Fact TV are always here, and they do record these events, which is really nice because they will play on the Fitchburg Community Access Channel repeatedly so that residents and other people that can't make it to the forum are able to view. Okay, we got some more. Brandon just keeps pushing out some fun things for you guys to do. March 18th is a Fitchburg Business After Hours at St. Charles Station. If you haven't been there, that's going to be a really nice location to come and check out. On March 26th, Chamber Table Talk. Chamber Table Talk is a small group format networking event that we host. We cap it at about 15 people. Takes place every month. And it's a really nice forum to get to network and get to know people a little bit more in depth. And so that does fill up every month. So if you're interested in that, register online. Added a new event this year, Coffee Connect, every other month. This is a rotating networking event in the mornings, every other month at various businesses. Last week we hosted at Discovery Storage, had a really nice turnout. A little more informal gathering. Come when you can, leave when you need to. But it's a nice way, again, to meet new people, grow your networks, and also to kind of get to know businesses in the community. Oftentimes they offer a tour, or if you have a need to know more about somebody that's hosting. And then we have another after hours in April. We've got some new chamber members, and if you're here, if you're one of these people, could you stand up? But we have Kind Therapy, Grand Appliance and TV, Crash Box Therapy. Wow, that sounds cool. Maybe after the election. Been There, Dumped That, and Every Voice Music Services, LLC. So some new businesses, check them out online, come to one of our events and meet the representatives and welcome them to the community. Okay, before we meet these candidates, and these are our alder candidates, I'd like to at least go around the room, and if there are other elected officials in the audience, to stand up, introduce yourself, maybe give a little 30-minute or 30-second. 30-second. That's only when Sean's running. 30-second little elevator speech. Tell us why you're serving. Okay?
Do you mind if I just come up here?
Absolutely do not.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thanks for this invitation. It's great to see everyone here today. My name is Brett Wagner. I am running for MMSD School Board Seat 3 as a Fitchburg dad on a mission, and that mission is to make sure that every student reads at grade level, every single one.
Guide dogs lead very interesting lives. For 10 or 12 years, they are in charge of guiding a blind person.
I got this recording from the U.S. Department of Education. They give a reading test every 2 years to a sample of kids.
Most guide dogs are born at a kennel.
That is, so that is a 4th grade student reading at grade level.
Read very interesting.
You can hear the exasperation. That's a student reading below grade level, and 50% of Madison students are reading at that level right now. 90% of African American students are reading below grade level. How does that happen in a district with as many resources as we have? Literacy, it affects graduation rates, it affects attendance, it affects student mental health, it affects future earnings. This is your future workforce. So as business leaders, you know the power of focusing on job number one. And as a Madison School Board member, my number one job will be make sure that every kid reads at grade level. And I promise I will make it the district's number one job. I'm a former high school science teacher, so I know what works in the classroom. I'm a junior achievement board member and volunteer working with kids on financial literacy, around entrepreneurship and career readiness. I'm an engineer leading complex business transformation in our health system. I'm a Cherokee Heights PFO president, and I know what works because I see it working in that school. Father of 2 MMSD students, again, Fitchburg resident, and I'm deeply invested in our school success. And I'm the only Fitchburg candidate, and I'm the only Fitchburg, I would be the only Fitchburg person representing our group on the board. Hasn't been that way in over 10 years. How do we make this possible? We transform instruction. We create dedicated reading blocks where all staff, gym teachers, music teachers, math teachers, everyone teach reading and group students by skill level, not grade level. We do high dosage tutoring, build an army of trained tutors, providing intensive support, 25 to 40 minutes, 4 days weekly for all struggling readers. And because Steve asked, accountability, more transparent reporting. Reading proficiency is the central metric that we need to be tracking for district success. How can you help? Help me reach voters with this message. I have direct mail and digital campaigns designed and ready to go, but we need $20,000 to elevate the issue in the district, and most importantly, reach the parents of those 50% of Madison students who are struggling to read, and many I've talked to have given up hope. Go to brettwagner.com, donate and endorse. I would really appreciate it if you'd write a letter to the editor. And I just want to thank Mayor Arata Frada for her endorsement and Alderperson Dantzler for his endorsement. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Anybody else here? An elected, did Gabriella want to introduce yourself? Just want to let you recognize your Fitchburg representatives.
Hi, thanks so much, Angela. I'm Gabriella Gerhardt. I represent District 2. Bill and I share the same district, so that's two alders per district, in case you don't know. I've been on the council since April 2020, and I'm currently serving as the council president. One of my priorities for this year is housing. I think housing is one of the most urgent issues facing our city. I serve on Plan Commission, Housing Advisory, and Transportation and Transit this year, and really delighted to be part of those conversations about how our city is growing. During my day job, I work at the Habitat for Humanity of Dane County, so I work on the other side of the issue during my day job. I'm really happy to be here today and excited to hear from the candidates. Thank you.
Mayor Radafrada, would you like to say anything? Mayor, she's not up for election at this time, but.
Thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you, Fitchburg Chamber, for doing this type of focus group. I am Julia. I have been the mayor of the city. In April, it's going to be 2 years, but I have been involved with the city for the last, it's going to be in April, 10 years as an alder representing District 2, that is the area. As Gabriela mentioned, our focus for this year, a priority for the city is going to be housing and housing initiatives. We are planning to do, Mike Zimmerman here is the Economic Development Director. We are planning to do a developer roundtable in May. Yeah.
We may shift that based on some things that Smart Growth Greater Madison is doing.
Okay.
Yep.
But we are planning to do that because we are very, very intentional on how to solve our housing crisis here, not only in our city, but also in Dane County and the state. But everything starts at the local level. So thank you very much for being here. So, thank you, candidate, for running. And then good luck.
Okay, so we'll get started today. So we have, as I mentioned, 4 candidates. The seat that is contested is Jay Allen is our current alder for seat 5, and his candidate opponent is Logan Reichstad.
Reichstad. Yeah.
Reichstad.
Close.
Okay. And then each of the other seats, Fitchburg has 4 seats that are up every year, rotating our alder representatives. We have some questions that have been submitted in advance by our members, and then we'll also take questions from the audience if you like. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond, and Brandon will have those fancy cards there to tell you how much time you have left, just so we can stay on track this morning.
Oh, my.
Okay? It's a hard stop.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Okay. So first of all, we'd like the candidates to introduce themselves. I was going to do that, but I think you guys do a better job. So if you want to take a minute and a half or so to introduce yourself, and we'll start with Dave.
Morning, everyone. Welcome. My name's Dave Herbst. I represent District 1 in Fitchburg. This will be my 3rd term on Alder. I'll just add that I'm informally known as Lord Voldemort by the other council members, affectionately or unaffectionately. But I live in a district, well, I'll just say my background, I'm an engineer, a degreed engineer, a professional engineer in the state, and I work at a Fitchburg business, Dashiell, that I helped move to Fitchburg about 10 years ago, and I run a business unit at that company, and I have 12 people that I'm responsible for generating the work, seeing the work gets executed, and business plans. So I also do physical work in the field. I work in high voltage substations. But my district that I represent has a wide, I guess the word is dichotomy. I represent the largest percentage of people at the lower income strata in the city, and I have some of the very most affluent residents. So it's an interesting district. Like I say, this will be my 3rd term. I enjoy meeting the residents. As if you ask people, I'm very visible in my district. I'm out all the time meeting people, and I would just say that's my favorite part of being an alder. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Bill?
I'm Bill Jutzer. This will be my 2nd term as alder for Fitchburg. Got onto the council in April of 23. I took Mayor Julia's old seat in District 2. So I'm the other alder in District 2, as Gabriella mentioned earlier. A little about me personally. I'm married. I've got 3 kids. I've been in Fitchburg since 1996. My academic background is in the hard sciences, physics, and math. My entire career has been spent in information technology. Do a lot of computer programming, database work, that sort of thing. As my role on council, I'm in the Transportation and Transit Commission, the Board of Public Works, the Resource Conservation Commission. And some of my passions are basically urbanism and transportation issues. I've made a personal choice in my life to drive my car as little as possible, and I try to walk and bike and take transit wherever possible. And I am looking forward to my 2nd term.
I'm Jay Allen. I have lived in Fitchburg since 1985. I moved here actually from Milwaukee, where I was going to college at the Milwaukee School of Engineering. Prior to that, I had lived in a lot of different places. So at this point, I have 2 children, one who is in college at UW Superior trying to learn how to be a music teacher, and I have another child who is in school. She is, I always forget what year she is. I think she's a sophomore this year. They just keep getting older. I first got elected to the city council in 1993. I served on the council from 93 until 2009, and I was the mayor from 2009 to 2011. And then I got reelected to the council in 2021. So I am now running for my third term this stint. And it's exciting to see the things that are going on in the city. Back when I was on the council originally in 1995, we approved the Nine Springs Neighborhood Plan, which includes Swan Creek, Terravessa, Uptown, and at the time, all of those were farm fields. And I was on the steering committee that created that plan, and now I've been around long enough that I've actually seen stuff that we've planned happen. So it's kind of cool to see things that you worked on come to fruition. Hopefully we learn from some of the mistakes that were made at the time, and I think we have. We're doing better jobs with trying to have more complete neighborhoods, which has been probably our biggest issue in Fitchburg, is that many of our neighborhoods are like just residential, and there's no neighborhood retail. So if you want anything, if you want to get a soda, if you want to go to lunch, if you want to get your hair done, if you want to do anything, you have to get in a car and drive a long way. And one of the things that I've been pushing for is to have more complete neighborhoods where we have those neighborhood amenities within the neighborhoods. And of course, I've been a strong supporter of our Fitchburg parks, which have been constantly mentioned as one of the main reasons people like Fitchburg. So I'm hoping to continue the work that I've been doing on these things, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Logan Reichstad. I've lived in Fitchburg for about 2.5 years now, and glad to be here. Originally from Sun Prairie, I went to UW-Madison and then spent the better part of a decade working in local TV news in newsrooms all over the country. Covered a lot of ground and moved home here to my native Dane County in late 2021. One of the reasons I decided to run is that in that couple of years that I've been home here, I've struggled to find an affordable place to live in Dane County more than once. If it hadn't been by pure luck that somebody was leaving my last job when I got back and was working at Channel 3, if somebody hadn't left the week that I started, I would have been living outside the county and having to commute 2 hours a day just to work and contribute to our community. I was lucky to buy my first home here in Fitchburg in August of 2022. I bought, to the best of my knowledge, what is the smallest owner-occupied unit in Swan Creek, and 2 years later, the prices have gone up so high, I would be now priced out of Swan Creek, and I certainly know I'm not alone in that regard. Would love to use my television background to help better explain and connect what's going on at City Hall and be that bridge between what's happening in all the great work that's going on at City Hall and in many of your organizations and businesses and what's happening within our community. Would love to bring some new ideas. I've seen a lot of things that have worked pretty well in other communities like ours that have struggled with some growth and seen some of the challenges that come with that. Thinking of Charleston, South Carolina, especially when I was there for about 6 months. So I spent a lot of time focusing on problems, and now I really want to be a part of focusing on solutions that make our community a better place for the long term. So I'm looking forward to getting to know as many folks as possible and starting to build those bridges and provide some opportunities for folks that so far have not necessarily been up to the level that we would like them to, for everybody to be able to succeed and live and contribute to our communities. So I appreciate you all coming, and I'll pass it on to my fellow Transportation and Transit Commission member, Micah. We almost have a quorum here, I think, between Alder Jetzer, Micah, myself, Steve, and Alder. Yeah, I don't know if this meeting was noticed properly, but no official business will be conducted. So.
Hi, I'm Micah Latase. I've lived in Fitchburg since 2018. Before that, I lived in Southwest Madison for an additional 9 years. I grew up in Eau Claire. I came to UW for school, and aside from a couple years stint in New York City, I've lived here in Wisconsin my whole life. I have an IT background. My wife and I ran a small consulting business for a number of years. And since then, I am a partner in a small business that designs solutions for healthcare organizations to manage their chronically ill populations. I live in the Wildwood South neighborhood with my wife, Amy, our 9-year-old daughter, Lyra, who I don't know how she's going to feel about me working with Lord Voldemort, but it could be good or bad. She has her good and bad days. And then we have a corgi named Waffles. I currently, as Logan said, serve on the city's Transportation and Transit Commission. I serve on the governing council of Cornelish Charter School in Verona, where my daughter attends. And I'm also a volunteer tax preparer for the Madison Tax Center. I'm running for a number of reasons, but I'm going to start with a small but important one. And that's just that the impact and the speed at which municipal government can make a difference for people. So I love a big, audacious goal as much as anyone else, but just being able to connect a resident with a service they might not know existed, or connect them with city staff to solve a problem, just making that type of difference in people's lives is really important to me. In addition, though, I'm also interested in working on the city's big, giant goals as well, whether that's bus rapid transit coming into the city or the teen center project, things like that. I have experience in my job managing large-scale projects, teams of analysts, and then the budgets and finances that go along with them, as well as small businesses. So just looking to bring those skills to the city, and I just want to thank the Chamber for putting this on so we could all be here today.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and get started with the questions. We had 4 questions submitted, and Brandon, you ready? All right. And each candidate will have a couple minutes to respond. We aren't going to do these in any particular order, and since we've already kind of talked a little bit about our priorities, I think we'll jump ahead, speaking of big issues in the city or big things to tackle. We'll start with question number 4, candidates. And the city will be conducting a comprehensive plan update this year. And during that process, what are your priorities during the process, and what would you like to see when planning for the city's future growth? Why don't we start with Micah on that end and come this way?
Sure. So the current comp plan has 3 pillars at the beginning of it, and that's housing, jobs and education, and recreation. I think this is a pretty good overall thing to start with. For housing, I know we're going to have a housing question later, but there's a focus on housing and affordable housing, but there's also a lot of talk around building these complete neighborhoods, walkable neighborhoods with housing and services and transportation and jobs and businesses as well. I know housing almost always comes first in these timelines because you can't really have jobs and transportation without residents. But I just want to ensure that as we're building this housing, we continue to facilitate the development of these additional resources after the residents are in place, and making sure that we do bring these jobs and transportation and businesses to these communities so we can kind of build whole communities in addition to the housing. For jobs and education, so we have 3 different school districts. I think most people know that. I would like to see collaboration between the city and the school districts a little more. I think that when Verona decides to buy land to build new schools here, I think that we should celebrate that, and we should really work with them as partners. I was the beneficiary in high school of a business co-op program where I had a business class, and then I got a job at a local credit union in my town. I know Verona has similar programs, but I think that would be a really good partnership to give kids both job experience and a business education. And then recreation, I don't think I need to do much to convince people that our outdoor areas here are wonderful and should be maintained. So just in terms of land use, in terms of that as well, I just think it's important that we have wide and open communication when we look to change any sort of broad land use zoning designations and things like that. Not everyone in the city is always going to agree on how we should move forward, but we can do an open process. We can build trust between the residents, and we can take input from all sides and use it to make solutions. So, thanks.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Micah. I think one of the big things that we're going to be tackling, and really it's kind of the crux of our future in Fitchburg, is the proposal to expand our urban service area. We have, according to the Department of Administration, about 200,000 more residents coming to Dane County by 2050. So that growth is inevitable, and I believe in being proactive rather than reactive. I want to make sure that we are planning for this growth and we have these neighborhoods ready to go so that we aren't at the mercy of what comes as the winds of change blow through Fitchburg here, and making sure that we balance the needs of folks who are here currently and the folks who will be our future residents as well. Right now we've pretty well exhausted all the land within the urban service area other than a couple small areas, and there are neighborhood plans for some of them as well. So if we don't continue to expand, we can't grow the tax base and we can't continue to keep up with inflation, and then we're going to have to make some tough choices down the road. One of the things I want to focus on as well is adding some density. We have areas like in District 3, Uptown, where we are primed and ready to go. The infrastructure is there. The off-ramp has been in place for more than a decade now. We're ready to go and build some, that new downtown vision for Fitchburg and help us build that identity. There are places like that where it makes sense to have some additional density. We've got the transit service already in place as well, and we can use that to help offset some of the less dense portions of our community and make sure that we have a variety of different housing types and neighborhoods that really meet the needs of all the different types of residents who call Fitchburg home. I also want to kind of flash back and get back to the basics a little bit. I think what I've been hearing a lot when I've been knocking doors and hundreds of doors is that there are people who hear what the comprehensive plan is, and then the change happens and people say, this isn't what we planned for. Well, we need to be responsive, and this is a comprehensive plan is a vision, and we need to explain that it's not set in stone. We need to be responsive to changes, and it's not breaking any promises or going back on what we've discussed. It's being responsive, which I think a good government needs to be, is responsive.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
Yeah, I was mayor when we did the original comprehensive plan, which was a very thorough document. At the time, it was given credit for being the most thorough comprehensive plan in the state of Wisconsin. Our city planner at the time, Tom Havel, took great pride in putting that document together and working through a lot of things with other department heads, including Mike in economic development and public works and some other areas. So a lot of the stuff that guides the comprehensive plan are things that are kind of boring, like do we want to develop in areas that can't be gravity sewered? Who wants to talk about that? But that is an important thing, because if you start building in areas that require a lift station, that costs a lot of money to continue to maintain lift stations over long periods of time. We also need to have a diversity in the types of housing and the types of development that we do, not just in the size of the units, but also I think we've been struggling with how do we get prices more affordable. And that's been a real problem. It seems like you can't build a house for less than $400,000 these days. And that requires a lot of income in order to pay for that mortgage. So even where I live, everything it's just so expensive. So we've been working with the county and with other bodies to try to find ways to bring the pricing down. And I think some of that can be directed through the comprehensive planning process and hopefully get back to this idea of more complete neighborhoods where people don't have to rely on cars as much.
Great, thank you. Bill?
Yeah, my platform is healthy neighbors, healthy city, healthy planet. And as alluded to by all my colleagues up here, the end to all of those is basically walkable neighborhoods. Here in the U.S., since World War II especially, we've decided that we're going to put people over here and all the places they want to go over there. And that requires an awful lot of infrastructure, roads, water, sewer lines, per capita has just ballooned in the past 7 decades. And that has some real financial implications for the city and real health implications for people who now have to get into their cars and drive everywhere to do everything. And it is also ruining our planet with all of the pollution and impervious surface, et cetera. So I would like our comprehensive plan overhaul to move us more towards traditional neighborhoods where walking somewhere is more convenient than taking your car. Currently, the Wisconsin DOT estimates that within the city of Fitchburg, 40% of residents don't drive. I would love to see that number go up, and not because people can't afford to drive, but because driving becomes inconvenient when everything you need is within a 5-minute walk of where you live. We'll save millions of dollars on roads and water and sewer. By walking everywhere, we're getting more exercise than when we jump in our car and do everything. And of course, we're not going to be polluting the environment. So those are my goals. I would really love to see a truly walkable neighborhood in the city of Fitchburg.
Thank you. Okay, Dave, please.
I would tell you on this issue, many of you in the council have heard me say, stay in your lane. And this isn't necessarily my lane, my background. But what I have done is I rely, as an engineer, rely on my experience in talking to people. When I planning, I talk to residents, I talk to builders, talk to realtors, I talk to business people, get a perspective. And the one thing I would tell you, and you've heard this from the candidates, is failure to plan is planning to fail. Okay, and so I believe we're on a good path there. Where I differ with the other candidates some is I feel that the business growth is what should drive the housing, and mainly we're a healthier, better community if we have businesses in the city that people can work at. And I'm an example of that. I live 2 miles from my office. I ride my bike even when it's 10 below. I walk there when it snows. That you have businesses close to where people live. And the example I would give you, if you look at Verona, outside the, kind of by the Quick Trip on or PB, going towards Paoli, that large industrial park, there's a lot of businesses there that are employing people, and those people can live in Verona, which is a short distance. I'm not sure we have, a spot like that in Fitchburg right now, or anywhere, where we have the good access to do that. But where I differ again is I feel business growth should drive the housing growth, and not necessarily county says we have to add so many houses. We have a wonderful business that creates a ton of jobs in Verona, but do I have to build neighborhoods in Fitchburg for the workers, people that want to work there? So that's a difference between me and the other alders. What I would say, though, with the comprehensive plan is growth. Let me ask you a question here. Whose income or livelihood doesn't depend on growth? I don't see anyone. So I think we all know we have to grow, but at the same time, we have to make decisions that don't necessarily tax our existing residents out of their homes. So again, there's a little bit out of my lane on this one.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to question number 3. Some pretty upbeat. What makes City of Fitchburg special, and how will your leadership protect that and enhance that going forward? You want to start again,
Yeah.
Dave?
Yeah, I have very simple, things that make us great are, number one, the safety of our city. We have a very safe city, and our parks and infrastructure and bike trails. Those are what's drawing people here. And until relatively recently, was affordable. That's what drew me there. I would tell you, to be honest with you, what drew me to Fitchburg 37 years ago was not having a sidewalk in front of the house that I wanted to buy. That was my main, hated shoveling sidewalks. But again, we have wonderful parks. We have good, solid infrastructure, which I've been part of. I've been on Board of Public Works. This is my 33rd year. I've served longer on a committee than anyone in Fitchburg history, and I'm proud of the infrastructure we put in. And the simple, basic things, the safety, the beauty of our city, and I'd like to say affordability, but I have to hedge that a little bit. So that's all I wanted to say on it.
I guess some of my favorite things about the city are the trail system and the parks. It's incredible, living in a relatively urban area and being able to, walk or jump on my bike, and within 5 minutes, I'm out on the Cap City Trail, running or biking through the woods. Our proximity to, the city of Madison certainly doesn't hurt anything, right? And it's incredible being able to jump on the B and head into downtown Madison and not have to worry about where am I going to, park my car and that sort of thing. having access to the city of Madison, or going down the Military Ridge Trail and heading to Verona, for instance. I'm an outdoors sort of a person, so those are some of my highlights. I really do feel like we have an awful lot of wonderful businesses within the city as well. And I try to, patronize all my local businesses to the greatest extent possible. I live about a mile from Ollie's, for instance, and so that's one of the places where we'll often grab dinner. I live about a mile from here, a mile from City Hall. It's pretty nice being in an area where I'm able to get to any number of businesses.
Well, this is a question that's changed over the years. 35 years ago, the answer to that question would be, it's not Madison. There was a lot of hostility about the time that Fitchburg incorporated, and some of that still continues in some ways today. But I think for the most part, we're at peace with our neighbor to the north, and we've been able to work together on some big things that matter. We were able to work with the city on the Madison Metro bus routes when they recently redesigned all those. And we're continuing to work with them on BRT and other things that affect both of our communities at the same time. And I think that's important. But Fitchburg also has its own identity, not just as a suburb of Madison. And our identity has largely been centered around our parks. The parks have been things that people have talked about as long as I've lived in Fitchburg. People have been proud of our parks, the open spaces we have where people can recreate and do other things. We also have had a growing number of businesses. We open a lot of businesses every year in Fitchburg, and as my other colleagues have mentioned, I patronize those as much as possible. I have a new Quick Trip that's 2 blocks away from where I live, where I stop almost every morning. There's a small bar that's near where I live, where I stop probably more often than I should. I come over here to the Thirsty Goat and to the Great Dane and to the Indian restaurant that has a new name. So we're continuing to build up these types of businesses, and that's one of the things I love about this city.
Well, I will certainly echo what Alder Allen said about some of the great businesses we have in District 3. We ran into each other at that Quick Trip just the other day, and I certainly have been a big fan of the Rusty Bee since that opened. I went 3 times the first week it was open. So I've been very grateful to have that business close by to patronize for sure. We've mentioned and heard about the parks and the trails, and that was certainly what sold me when I walked into my condo and saw it overlooked a park and right on a trail, and I can bike to my job at the university within 30 minutes. Those things certainly sold me as well. So there's a lot going on, and I think a lot of us know what makes Fitchburg special and what makes it great. What I think could make it even greater would be to help build those connections and those bridges and get people to experience all those things that they may not know. I've been on the campaign trail now and tried some new businesses I haven't been to before that I've driven by how many times and never even looked at, and I said, I wish I would have known this was here. So I think we could be, building some of those bridges and connections. Something else I thought of is in Swan Creek, there was a neighborhood event that kind of sprung up organically, kind of a neighborhood block party. We've got opportunities to bring people together in our different neighborhoods, and something we could do, I'm imagining like a community event passport or something where you get stamps to go to all these different events and you get out of your neighborhood and experience all the different neighborhoods and the different groups of people we have. We have such a diverse community with urban and rural areas. We have areas that are more affluent. We have areas that are more, that have less, less financial means. I think we really need to now focus on bringing those people together and breaking out of our bubbles. I know I'm certainly guilty of with COVID, kind of retreating into my bubble a little bit. I think if we can build those bridges and get people to experience and, recognize the things that make Fitchburg great, we can partner and then double down on them and enhance them and find ways to make Fitchburg even greater.
Yeah, so here to everything that's been said. This is a great question to go last on. So I'm going to focus a little bit on the community aspect. Living here makes me feel like I did growing up in Eau Claire. My daughter likes to refer to the 80s as this mythical time when there were no screen limits and the kids just ran loose in the streets with no adults around. And she's kind of correct about that. But in our community, there's 7 kids on our block. Any one of them could knock on our door at any time and ask my daughter to come out. Our babysitter lives a block away, and she walks home when she's done walking our kid. We started an annual block party. The streets on Halloween look like the streets on Halloween when I was a kid. And so that kind of community grew up in our neighborhood, seems like organically, but there are things that a city can do to support those kinds of communities. And when we support our residents with services from the city, it helps them build great communities. And I want to continue to foster that in the city. As far as leadership goes, that was the second half of this question, I think. I'll just emphasize that I will never know what it takes to run a city perfectly and efficiently and every single piece of information that I need to know. I'll never know as much about certain topics as our incredible city staff does, but I will be adept at knowing what I don't know and going to who I need to find that information, getting the information that we need, and then synthesizing that into solutions, or working with our residents and our staff to find solutions that haven't been thought of yet. And so that's just a little bit about leadership style. And just the last thing is just, once we make decisions, I will always be available to residents of my district, whether we agree on it or not, and will explain my position and why I voted the way I did. So.
Okay, so I'm going to throw you guys for a little curveball, because in the interest of time and that we get to take a few minutes at least for the audience questions, we had 2 more questions, but we're going to mesh them together in addition to your wrap-up. And just to let you know what the questions were, one was affordable housing in Fitchburg, which we all have touched on here. So, and then the other question was, what is your number 1 priority, both for the residents and the business community? So what we're going to do is just kind of, you can think about those in your wrap-up, and also just anything else that you didn't get to address today that you'd like to. And then we'll take questions from the audience. Put you on the spot there. Sorry, guys. Do you want to start, Micah?
Sure. I think at this one last year, they asked what everyone's number 1 priority was, and it was all affordable housing and development. So I think that's a priority for everyone. As Logan said earlier, we're projected to add 200,000 residents. The one thing that I'll just say about this, so there's a lot of complex issues, there's changes we can discuss, there's affordable housing requirements, there's zoning changes, all these things are incredibly worth discussing. But the fact is that to keep up with housing requirements, we just need to build more housing. You build more housing of any variety, it opens up capacity, it opens up space. The main thing is just having that construction keep up or exceed population growth, because that is what actually brings down the cost of housing for people. And this has been shown and proven and done in other communities. It's not easy. It can be very, very hard to keep up with that population growth, but it has been proven to be done. When it comes to what and where we build, I just want to touch on meeting kind of the residents that are moving into our community where they are with the housing they need. I've talked to a number of young people who aren't looking to take the same path that I did, which is to get my first job and immediately start looking for a house to buy or a condo to buy. The 3% mortgages and the buyer's markets are just not there anymore. And so a lot of people are looking to stay in a rental for longer. And that's okay. It's just kind of a shock to people who buying a house was just the first thing you did after you got a job. In addition, I just want to touch on that we have a large rural population in the city, a large amount of land devoted to agriculture, and with owners that are kind of looking to avoid the type of sprawl that have happened to cities in the past. and want to continue to have a mix of those rural and agricultural areas. So just centering high-density housing on our transportation corridors will allow us to kind of balance those complete neighborhoods that everyone's been talking about with also supporting our rural and agricultural land in the city. Oh, I got there before you.
All right. I'll certainly echo basically everything Micah just said as well. Affordable housing it's the one topic I've talked, when I've been talking to folks and knocking doors, it's the one thing that's come up repeatedly about every single door. The number of people who have said, if I hadn't bought during COVID, I wouldn't be here. Now we're certainly past the worst of the pandemic, thank goodness. And, with that, we have some new challenges and that pent up demand. And we've been underbuilding for so many years. I think back to growing up in Sun Prairie pre-Great Recession, and houses and fourplexes and duplexes were springing up like daisies. We've been building consistently, but we haven't been building to keep up. What I heard a great analogy from UW professor on WPR where he said, you've got a friend going 70 on the interstate, you're going 60 and you want to catch up, but you only get up to 68. You're never going to catch up. So we're kind of at 68 and we need to continue moving. And we've got a lot of great resources at our disposal. We have $10 million in affordable housing funds ready to go to put into use for these projects. And we've discussed some great projects too, like a rent-to-own townhome program. But I'd like to see us kind of stop talking and start doing, if that makes sense. We've got these opportunities sitting here before us, and I want to find ways that we can use that money in a renewable fashion. So with the $10 million, we're kind of at a stage where we don't expect any other tax increment districts to close in the next few years. So we aren't going to have that renewable source of funds here. So how do we get the most out of that? One of the questions I had asked recently was, can we do something like supporting pre-buying condo units so developers can get a better interest rate and then selling them once they're done, and then 18 months later we get that money back, and then we can do it again and again and again and kind of use it in a recurring fashion. So I want to certainly rely on the expertise of those who are doing this work and be a partner rather than kind of coming in with our own ideas and just coming down with an edict. I think there's a balance that we need to hit, and it's certainly one that I'm willing to listen, and I'll never claim that I know everything or that I'm the only source of information. I think we need to balance the community's needs there. So
this, as Micah mentioned, this is a supply and demand problem. We have a lot of people who want to move to Dane County, lots and lots and lots of people, and housing is not being built fast enough. And that's one of the challenges involved in the pricing, because when the demand goes up but the supply is not going up as fast, prices go up. But there's also the issue with raw materials. The actual cost of building a house or an apartment building or whatever has gone up at rates that are faster than inflation. And so those are factors that are difficult to deal with, because the city doesn't just go and decide we're going to build 500 houses in this neighborhood. There has to be a developer who comes along and says, I'm willing to invest in this. The city's done a lot of work in streamlining its approval processes. And there was actually just an article in the State Journal not too long ago about how Fitchburg has one of the fastest processes for getting projects approved in the county, which is something that we're proud of. It's something that we've worked hard to make happen. But there's also different issues that you have to deal with property owners, for example. Let's say you've got a farmer who's got a farm and they're ready to develop it. And it's close to the urban service area. So we might go for a comprehensive plan amendment. But the farmer says they don't want to have any commercial development within their property. Or the farmer says they don't want to have any multifamily development within their property. So there's all these conflicting interests that have to somehow be brought together. And that's one of the biggest challenges, I think, that we face moving forward.
So my first incremental top priority for this year is to expand transit within the city. I would like to bring some transportation equity to those 40% of Fitchburg residents who don't drive, about 30% of Fitchburg residents over the age of 16. And, with regard to affordable housing, housing and transportation are the two biggest expenses for any family. And so the more we can minimize the need for transportation, the more affordable housing will become. Even if they pay a little more for their housing, if they can pay a lot less for their transportation, they're still coming out ahead. And it's healthier for, physically and mental health for the family, financial health for the family, financial health for the city if we don't need to spend excess millions of dollars building new roads and maintaining them. And it's, also better, as mentioned previously, for the planet. And I think, additionally, we need to prepare for a lot of climate migrants. Here in the Great Lakes region, we have the most climate resilient area of the country. And we should expect people to move here from the south, from the west, escaping hurricanes, floods, and fires. And we need to plan for a lot of growth, and we need to do it, in the smartest manner possible. So compact, walkable neighborhoods where you don't need 2 cars just to survive.
Okay, thank you.
I would just say, before it gets out, the Dark Lord is in favor of growth. So, I will make a statement, and maybe looks like Sean left, and the realtors. I'm sorry, but unless we have a severe economic downturn, the price of housing will not be going down in our city, no matter how much we build. I just don't. It never has. It hasn't in my 37 years here, and I think it's a fallacy to think it will be. But that's not to say that we can't build, find a place, find the niches to make things more affordable. In my district where I live, really only have one area to develop yet that will have housing, and that's the quarry property. It's not so much of a issue for us here. But the thing I would say here, and again, the Dark Lord, there's too much focus on the people that haven't lived here versus the ones that live here. They've been paying the bills, building the infrastructure. That's my main issue. Is I'm certainly pro-growth, pro-business. We need it for our community, but we've lost the focus on the people that have built the city and are paying the bills. So, I think that's all I wanted to say on that.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So kind of running out of a little time here. I want you guys to be able to get going, but we do have time for just a couple questions from the audience. If you want to ask of a specific candidate or if you want to ask all the candidates, we'll take about 30 to 45 seconds to answer. It's really speed round. This is called the speed round. Anybody have a question? Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you're live.
Okay. So I'm with the Madison Reading Project. My name is Josh Belofko, Donor Engagement Specialist. And I was just wondering if all the candidates could, I'm actually inspired by Brett, the MMSD candidate, to ask this question. What your thoughts on solving the literacy crisis are, collaborating with us, collaborating with the district. I know there's the 1,000 books before kindergarten program. We've received a grant from the city of Fitchburg. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts on solving the literacy crisis is.
I'll go first. I put a lot of thought into this, and I live next to a challenged neighborhood. Okay, I'll just admit it. When I visit the homes of the residents there, you go in my house, there's bookcases full of books that I've read, trying to get my kids to read them. But I go in those homes, relatively no books. And I don't think that's a surprise to anyone here. But, it is a solvable problem. And, some simple things, I'm working on getting a little free library in that neighborhood. You know how far that goes. But the issue that I see, and it was elaborated to us, we have to reach these children at a very young age. And, what has been my vision, at least in District 1, instead of a teen center, we have a community center. And after school, and I can easily get 150 to maybe 200 volunteers, After school, the children come to the community center, and there's a tutor that works with them to read, okay? And we can also recruit teenagers to come and help the young children. And then you break the cycle, and those children then learn to read, they succeed in school, they're able to get better jobs, as the candidate mentioned. And it's not a complex solution. It takes people willing to roll up their sleeves and do it. And the people are out there. In my neighborhood, many people have said, yes, we'll come and volunteer. If you ask, you go to a neighborhood, how many people, you say, can you give me 3 hours a month? And I think you can find a lot of them that will give you 3 hours a month. And a simple thing with that, in the school district can identify the children. And so I think it's a solvable problem, and that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Brandon. I went a minute 30 longer than I wanted to.
That's good information. I just want to make sure work. Anybody else want to take?
Yeah, do you mind if I go? So I love this question. So I'm on the governing council of Core Knowledge Charter School. One of the foundational principles of that school is that we've been doing the science of reading, phonics-based reading for decades now, whereas the rest of the country is kind of only just catching up to that being, the evidence-based method of these kids learning to read. I love that the districts are moving to this type of reading program. Verona just chose their new curriculum, and we as a school are just in the process of reviewing different curriculums to choose our new reading curriculum too. But just supporting the school districts as they kind of move towards this science of reading-based curriculums is going to make a huge difference as well. And so just partnering with school districts, I'm happy to talk to you about anything we could do with Core Knowledge, because it's a great school. But I'm really excited about the changes that are coming forward just in terms of reading curriculums in the state.
I think if I sum up what Dave said, it might be something like it takes a village to raise a child. Kids are incredible. They go from absolute blank slate at birth to fluent speakers of their first language in about 3 years. And if you work with them, they are reading at 3 years old, at 4 years old. So the question isn't, are kids capable of this? They all are, 100%. It's just a question of whether their adults have the ability and the time to work with them. And if they don't, do they have a network of people who can? And that's really what it takes, is that network. So organizations like yours are awesome, The more we can get books in front of kids, the problem will just evaporate. And the word just is, using a lot of, doing a lot of heavy lifting there. But that's the crux. They need a lot of contact at a very early age, and then there is no problem.
So this is a very important issue, and while I think it's largely a school district issue, there are some things that the city can do, and one of those is this. And I have to be careful how I say this because it's going to sound like I'm bashing on people inappropriately, but. Prior to the library being constructed, Fitchburg was served by the Bookmobile, the Dane County Bookmobile. The Dane County Bookmobile had 7 stops in the city of Fitchburg where it stopped every week. And people, especially in some of the less advantaged neighborhoods, had access to books right out their front door. There was a stop up on Post Road. There was a stop in Tower Hill. There was a stop near Dave's house. The Bookmobile was all over the place. You could see it, and it would be there for a couple hours. People could go in and get a book. The library board, which was appointed prior to the library referendum passing, promised that they would provide some of those services, and it's now been 15 years since the library was built, and many of those services are not being provided. And that is, the library does a lot of things. They have a lot of programs that happen at the library, but the library is difficult to get to if you don't have a car. And that's one of those things that I think we need to focus on changing over the next several years, is getting the library more involved in other areas of the community than just that building at the corner of Lacey and Fish Hatchery Road.
Okay, great. So we are out of time for today, but the candidates may have time to talk individually, or I just want to thank everybody for coming today. The election is April 6th?
April 1st.
April Fool's Day.
That's no joke.
Don't come on April 6th. It's really on April 1st. So we encourage everybody, this is an important election, not only in Fitchburg, but in our state of Wisconsin. Encourage everybody to get out and vote. And thank you to all the candidates here for your investment in time and commitment to Fitchburg. So we appreciate it. Thank you.